Okay, so today is again one of those episodes that I've kind of been waiting a while on because it's one of those episodes that's going to make people mad. The question at hand is, does neck turning contribute to accuracy? We're going to answer that a little bit, but more than that, we're not going to answer because I don't believe in answering. I believe in maybe making people think. People are smart. I want people to figure stuff out on their own. Because information, like it or not, information is hard. I'm going to go down onto my pictures so that I can talk. Hopefully this will work. I don't know. Anyway, information is bloody hard to access. Always has been. This isn't an internet rant. This isn't about... Information has always been hard. The internet helped a lot because a lot of the information that had been written down in magazines and in books was unsupported opinion prior to that. And then there would be a few people that would write a book that was pretty informative and everybody would jump on that bandwagon and again be maybe led off down the merry path. Some good, some bad. But let's just start with the fact that information is hard. So, I can start today. We're going to talk about neck turning. You go on the net and you go find information. I mean, does neck turning make your gun more accurate? It's kind of a no, yes, no thing. There was a time when neck turning changed the world. But let's start with the fact that getting information is hard. And here's the thing, there's 3 different kinds of information in this world. There's misinformation. Misinformation is like the Bidens. These people are possibly too stupid to know they're stupid. So they throw out information because they get it from guys like Bill Nye the Science Guy, or they get it from a think tank. They get it from bent people and they pass it on because they're too, I'm not going to say dumb because the good Lord done made us all with the same brain, but their focus is on something else. So they get led around by and informed by bent people. I don't know what else to say. Cacklers like Kamala Harris who have their skin tags on society. They have absolutely no function. They can't do anything. They're not good for America. They're not good for civilization. They're not good for society. They just go out there and blat out comedians like George Carlin. People think he's bright. People think he's... No. Misinformation, taking bad suppositions and making content out of it. So misinformation is maybe not meant to disinform people. It's just uninformed. Then you have your disinformation. Disinformation is spread by people who have an agenda. They might be selling something. They might be trying to change their paradigm, their world, their place of operations. I used the term bent before, but the disinformation people are really bent. Bent is a word that's been around for a long time that talks about people taking the facts of society around us and then bending them. These are the people like Neil deGrasse Tyson. You go to him to try to find facts and you find out he's a bent shill for a government agenda. These are people like the president's press secretary, whether it was the last one, Jen Psaki, that had to move on, or that stupid Bobsy twin wench that's in there now, Karine Jean-Pierre. They are paid, they are told to disinform, to deflect, to change. And I use this just to bring up the fact that there's misinformation in the world, there's disinformation in the world, but the most common thing in the world is non-information. Non-information is the typical shooter on a typical forum or in a typical article, or it's smoke and mirrors. It's the BS that sells cars and houses and fishing lures and guns and supplies and new chamberings and new... It's full of people who are... It's aimed at people who are looking for validation, not for learning, not for facts. These are the people that constantly say, you know what I mean? 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 What that means is that, would you please validate my unsupported opinion? And then you get 2 or 3 of these people together. And this is the typical shooter. This is the typical shooter, and this is typically the information that he wants, but that's not what I do here. I don't give you information that you want. I give you information that you need if you're going to move forward. We need to put neck turning into perspective and ask ourselves, why? Why is it a thing? Why is it, did somebody just build up an industry and then they support that industry and people are too dumb to know the difference, or what? No. Neck turning originally was there because we had a problem in the industry. We couldn't get good, consistent cases. And somebody came up with the ultimate bench rest case, the ultimate accuracy case, which was the PPC. The cases at the time were 220 Russian, and they were pretty horrible. You know, the necks would vary by 2,000 to 3,000. So neck turning became a thing, and now it's still a thing because there's a whole industry built around it. But the problem is now you go on the internet and you try to find out, why would a person neck turn? And that's where you run into this vast reservoir of non-information, which is generated by the typical shooter. Understand, the typical shooter just wants to be one of the cool people. The typical shooter goes on the forums and he lives for the thumbs up. He's counting likes. He's on Facebook and he says, I'm a success, I must be right because I got 1,000 likes. They don't even understand that validation doesn't make you right. They come on and they throw out a statement like, well, since Acroglass sucks, what's your favorite epoxy for bedding? And all the other hose bags jump in and they're like, oh yeah, Acroglass is soft, and Acroglass doesn't like hoppies, and Acroglass doesn't hold up over the long term, and the really funny, Acroglass has been replaced by some much cooler stuff. Well, how is this new stuff cooler? When you say replaced by much cooler stuff, support that. Support that. So I'm not trying to go off on Acroglass. I'm just saying most opinions are unsupported. It starts with the old, well, let me wait and build some. Let's just go with some of the reasons that you're going to find on the internet for neck turning. Since I got you all wound up yesterday about saying that a non-neck turn gun can shoot just as good as any other, and since I made a couple of statements about do the math and dude, hope you guys understand and blah blah blah, and well, it's actually a half a thou, and I gave a couple of conflicting things for a reason. I want you people to think this scenario that I set up is not about telling you or teaching you or jumping on the bandwagon with all the other unsupported opiners out there. This is about, look at this, think about this, sit down and think about this some more, draw some pictures, and go test this stuff. And when I say test, I don't mean just shoot it on the target, because people can lead themselves into all kinds of rabbit trails believing, oh, I'll throw those out, that was a flyer I called out. BS! Absolute BS. So I go on the tube prior to setting this thing up and I search for all the reasons I could find for next turning. The first one generally is bullet release. Optimizing neck tension to promote good bullet release. Now, what does that even mean? One of the most popular websites out there has got this article written by some expert, which we all know all about experts. And he says, quote, "It's to equalize and optimize neck tension in order to reduce elevation dispersion." I said that slow so that you can understand. What he's saying is you turn all your necks because it makes your vertical dispersion, elevation dispersion, less. Now, people have been turning knee plats off. They've been turning necks. And in the end, when you get down to it, unless you honestly think that you can change the flight characteristics of the bullet, BS, by knee plat turning, BS, by whatever it is, then what you're trying to do is account for elevation dispersion due to gravity drop. Gravity drop. So, what that comes down to is what you're really working on is extreme spread. This goes back to the last 2 weeks I've been ranting about extreme spread. And yes, extreme spread is a thing. But trust me, turning necks to equalize and optimize neck tension in order to reduce elevation dispersion, which in shorthand means in order to reduce ES, which means in order to reduce extreme spread in the interest of optimizing elevation response. This is words. This is bullshit. This is a people saying stuff because in actual fact, that's just a way of saying we made the bullets all fly at the same speed. Unfortunately, neck tension has absolutely zero to do with that. So bullet release. Then we go to guiding means, which is a really, really big one. That's probably the number 2. Most people will go out, they don't even know guiding means from their backside. They talk about turning all the way around the neck, even on a factory gun with 14 thousandths of clearance in there because it makes the blah, 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 and that's where everything kind of fades into a mumble. But guiding means is legit. That's what we're going to talk about in these pictures. Guiding means is, that's the neck clearance that guides the back of the bullet. Then you got and again, I'm just kind of going to go through and quote some of these articles. We got one that says, it's pretty much accepted throughout the industry that differing forces are bad for accuracy. What does that mean? Non-information again. Absolute non-information. We got guys talking about the friction coefficient. Well, should we lube the inside of our neck? Oh no, I just leave carbon. No, I scratch mine out clean. Oh no, no, no. We're not talking about bullets welding together. We're talking about friction coefficient, which would indicate that the bullet is somehow sliding in this neck. Give me a freaking break, people. Unless you've got this much freebore, the bullet doesn't slide. The neck opens up, and the bullet's fighting to get into the lens, and it's blamming around in here. No, there's no sliding friction coefficient. Again, it's some, I'll call him a non-information junkie, trying to be one of the cool people, trying to, basically trying to come up with something relevant so that he can be out there with everybody else in the room yammering about things that everybody considers to be relevant. Pretty well agreed that a concentric relationship means better accuracy. What kind of crap is that? Concentric relationship. That has nothing to do with anything. So, we're going to talk about why. Why, people? This is what it comes down to. 1959, Pete Seeger wrote, "To everything there is a reason. Turn, turn, turn." The Byrds made it popular. Well, that information is absolutely a lot older than that, like thousands of years older. It comes from the 3rd chapter of Ecclesiastes, but that's neither here nor there. To everything there's a reason is what I'm leading up to. There's a reason for neck turning. Yesterday I talked about in the previous episode how at least one of the biggest shooters on earth right now is shooting unturned necks. And I said, in simple fact, an unturned neck will shoot, can shoot, must shoot better than a turned neck. Think about that. Better. Not only does it equal the turned necks from back in the day, that were turned for a reason because they had crap brass. They wanted the guiding means. And so therefore they cut wicked small chambers, and they cut all their brass such that the smallest cases, the thinnest cases in there, worked or fit or cleaned up. But now we need to talk about that guiding means and what it actually means. So that's what we're going to do now, is we are going to take this. Hopefully you can read this. This is a side view of what I was talking about yesterday. How if you've got a neck that, now understand something. I've blown up, I've exaggerated these so-called problems. An unturned typical normal Lapua neck, even a Winchester neck, will have maybe a half a thou variation from side to side. Maybe. I've never seen anything much over a half. Lapua is normally within 0.0003. But that aside, there is an eccentricity. You can see it when you turn it on a mandrel. So let's just take this. We're going to start with the fact this is the side view of a cutaway chamber. This right here is the ubiquitous metal of the barrel. And we're going to call this one 1 thou thicker on this side. This is a big old fatty neck on this side. We're going to call this down here the thin side. It's a thou less thick. So this side's a thou thicker. That moves. Let's just start with the fact that if we have a thou of clearance in this chamber on both sides, a diametric 2/1000, which gives you a thou on every side, and the neck is a thou thicker, that pushes the alignment of the bullet in automatically off the half a thou. I referenced this half a thou yesterday trying to get people to think. Because if I've learned through the years that sending out information just glazes people's eyes over. No, my job is to make you think. So now we've got this thou of clearance all the way around. We'll look at it here from the front side. And I don't know if this is useful or not. This is the barrel. This is my I just threw this stuff over. This is the front view of that neck. Thin, and we're going to call thin the bottom, thick on top. That means that the center line of the bullet is a thou below center to start with. But it's just floating in here. And when you push it forward, the tip of the bullet's going to move over that. Did I say a thou? I'm sorry. Half a thou is what this is going to move. The tip of the bullet, the center line of the bullet is going to be half a thou low as it sits in the loaded round. When you push it into the lands, that's the pushing into the lands, that's the closing of the bolt motion. That tip's going to pick up, and you've got a half a thou clear everywhere. It's just going to pick up the nose of the case, not going to bend anything. And then when this case whacks out, when this case pops out, everything goes to zero and it seals. Understand, this has to happen. This stuff is not just floating around in there. When it pops out, this is how I'm going to support the fact that let's start with the fact that they say that 3/1000ths of clearance is about the optimum. Some guys turn thin to win will say 4,000. Well, I pretty much agree. They say is a scary thing because I can start with they say. Jeremy Clarkson used that in Top Gear to great comedic effect. They say. So I'm just going to say there's a die maker out there that's selling dies and they start their freaking ad that way. They say concentricity matters and we promise you we've got the best equipment. We make the most concentric. Well, who cares about your concentricity in your die? We're worried about clearances, tolerances. The simple fact is that even if you've got a neck that's got 1,000ths of different, the most that can move the bullet off is a 1/2,000. Which centers up when you push the case forward because there's a little bit in it. Then the thing pops out. And now you end up with, let's say 3/1000ths is the ultimate clearance in a perfectly neck turn, bench rest, blah, 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 blah. Everything. That means it can go 1.5 any direction depending when you drop the hammer on it. So here we've got this same kind of a thing, only we've got a neck. I suggest, again, neck turning is to make your cases match your gun. I suggest that you build the gun around the cases. And then you start with building your gun 2/1000ths bigger in the neck. Give it 2/1000ths of diametric clearance, or 3, but 2 on factory brass. As they hammer out, they're going to thin just a little bit. They're going to iron out. They're going to get better and better and better. That 2 is going to grow to 2.25 thou maybe. But the simple fact is, to go back to yesterday's discussion, if this thick neck is 1,000th thicker than this thin side, the most misalignment you can get, the absolute most misalignment that you can get, is 1.5 thou on this side and basically 0 on this side. So what we've got, this is what I'm trying to make you think about. On the thinnest side of an unturned neck, you can achieve, at the very worst, about the acceptable 1.5 thou of misalignment if it goes that way. Now there's an argument to be made that it's going to go this way because this side's going to burst out because it's thinner and it's going to put. But the point is, on these sides, you're as though you had a perfectly turned neck. On the thin side, the most you're going to get is 1.5 thou, and on the thick side, the bullet's going to be perfectly aligned. It's going to have no run out. So we go no run out, no misalignment, very acceptable misalignment, as good as a turned neck, and down here on the thinnest side, you get the same amount of misalignment as you would with a turned neck.